From Politico, the rise of UKIP's YouTubers. A trio of social media stars are helping push the UK's Brexit party to the right. That's actually what it says. To the right. Who's their trio? They got... It started, as most things Marcus Meechan does, with social media posts. If this gets 10k retweets, I will join UKIP. Meechan, a Scottish political YouTuber known online as Count Dankula, very serious political name, Count Dankula, wrote on Twitter on June 15th, "I'm not joking. This is not a meme. I'm being completely serious." The next day, Meechan and two other rising stars on the video sharing platform joined the United Kingdom Independence Party in what one of them described as a soft coup. The coup description was meant as a joke, but they might as well have been serious. Less than half a year later, the party that put Brexit on the political agenda is undergoing a transformation driven in no small part by the online star power of Meechan and his fellow YouTubers, Paul Joseph Watson and Carl Benjamin, who posts under the name Sargon of Akkad. I'm gonna poke some fun at Sargon real quick. There's a funny meme. This is like an anti-Sargon meme, but you gotta admit it's funny. It said, it was like a picture of the actual Sargon, and it said, "Imagine being a great world conqueror, and then in the future your name becomes associated with a fat anti-feminist YouTuber." And I thought that was really funny because Sargon has pointed out that whatever this group of people is, YouTubers, internet's they're not good at naming things, and so now Carl is stuck being called Sargon of Akkad. I'm not saying this to disparage Sargon. I assume he understands jokes, unlike many people on the far left, or maybe even Politico, who assume he's further right than the rest of UKIP's party. Jokes is just jokes. They're not meant to, words are not violence. The political landscape in the UK is blighted and ripe for a bold UKIP to rise up, Benjamin told Politico in an email. "We are the party of freedom, and we will win." While the UK's Brexit party, which hit its electoral peak in the 2014 European elections, finishing first with 24 seats, has largely faded from view in Westminster following Nigel Farage's departure in 2016. It has been slowly trying to rebuild and remodel itself, supported by the UK's growing online ecosystem of right-wing populism. The new UKIP has yet to be properly tested at the ballot box, but its reemergence as the UK's first post-referendum populist party, fueled by social media, is symptomatic of a broader international shift in how politics is conducted today. Wow, they need a copy editor. With potentially transformative effects. Two of UKIP's former leaders, Farage and Paul Natal, quit earlier this month in protest at the direction the party is taking. Half of its members in the European Parliament followed. That's crazy. So I would argue that, I don't know if they're trying to make it seem like UKIP's doing better, but it would sound like they're not. And maybe they haven't been in the first place, or I should say, maybe they actually have done better regardless of Farage and Paul Natal, But one of the things I want to point out real quick is they say they're pulling Brexit to the right, and it's like Dankula's got a communist star on his chest. Granted, he's obviously not communist anymore, but to call him conservative is absurd, or right is absurd. Paul Joseph Watson, I think it's fair to call Paul a conservative based on the things he advocates for and he argues on behalf of. Arguing on behalf of, I don't think is a great position to claim someone's political position to an extent. Sargon dances between the center-left and the center-right on many issues, so I think it's fair to just call him center. But it seems like right is a derogatory term. You know what I mean? Like, they want to make it look bad, so they say it's to the right, as if this implies only the left is good or the right is bad, or Brexit, the UKIP party is somehow not already right-wing or conservative, whatever that means. I don't even honestly know what UKIP's political positions outside of Brexit are, because nationalism isn't inherently right or left-wing. That makes no sense. But I want to make another point, something that's just bugging me. Activists like to do this thing where they take a fake quote that they made up, like so they'll take a clip of me saying something or quoting someone else, paraphrase that in a more extreme way, screenshot it, and then share it. So now people are sharing images where it's like Tim Pool defends Europe from migrants or something, and it's like literally me reading a quote. Or it was me paraphrasing a quote from somebody else. And it's like, I have a documentary on the front page of my channel saying that we should bring, refugees are fine. Like, oh my God. I made a documentary highlighting that there are very good people, legit awesome people who are refugees who need our help. And that because of the sensationalism, these people get lost in the fray. And I followed these two guys, right? But here's what happens. Honesty is dangerous. It is very dangerous to those who want to control the narrative and manipulate you. So what ends up happening is these journalists don't know. Oh God, it's so frustrating. Like this, whoever wrote this, I'm just gonna say it, I hate this term, but Tom, this guy who wrote this article, he's a useful idiot. A useful idiot for the far left who's trying to manipulate and control people because he doesn't bother to actually understand the nuance of Count Dankula or Sargon. Count Dankula makes political positions that are typically anti-authoritarian. I don't even think he necessarily makes arguments that are left or right-wing for the most part. And for me, my God, the most annoying thing is like, if Tim dares talk about certain issues, that makes him conservative. Like, this is one of the, seriously, subject matter determines political position, not your stance on subject matter. I kid you not. I made a video about Tucker Carlson where I disagreed with him, and they claim that video is conservative because I talked about Tucker Carlson. It's like, what? I made a video about how race mixing is good and is proven to create genetic hybrid vigor. I was talking about how I am proud of my heritage and how it's a good thing and how the alt-right is wrong, and they took that video to claim the opposite. This is the most psychotic. This is just, oh God, we're in the regressive dystopian future. And these people know what they're doing. They're select people. Some of them I know personally. They like to take things from Sargon and from Dankula out of context and manipulate them. And this is why I've actually decided to start blocking people. For the longest time I said, I'm not going to block people, I just ignore them, right? I don't like, tweeting at me doesn't bother me. You can tweet at me whatever you want, I'm not bothered by that. But then I realized there were a select group of people that hide. They just, I'm being facetious, but they sit in waiting. They wait for that tweet, for that video, because they want to take it out of context. They want to screen grab something you did and then add fake context to trick other people into thinking something about you. And that's, for example, that's kind of what I'm talking about, that somebody took me paraphrasing a quote from a news article and then claimed it was me making the statement. Like, people will actually, you know, you'll also notice a lot of times I don't quote certain things because this is what they do. And then what happened to Sargon is that someone puts together a huge list of out-of-context statements and sends it to as many people as possible in an effort to destroy their livelihood. These are evil people. I kid you not. You know, Notch said the left was evil, and, you know, I say, yeah, come on, it's a little bit hyperbolic, but there's absolutely evil people on the left, for sure. And the funny thing is, as much as I don't like the alt-right and ethno-nationalism, whether it's the left or the right, I don't care. I don't like identitarianism. For the most part, right? There's a nuance in all things, don't get me wrong. I don't like any of these, whatever. Let's just go back to the story. I'm ranting too much. The political landscape in the UK is blighted and ripe for I read that part already. So they say, the new UKIP is part of a wider international freedom movement, alongside the American conservative right, said Benjamin. They very much consider each other brothers in arms, despite the many thousands of miles that separate them. Watson agreed. It's one unified effort to preserve Western civilization, he said in an email. I actually have a bit of Eastern civilization in me, and I gotta admit, I had a talk with some, I don't want to say white nationalists, but they were more extreme than someone like Sargon. Like, they weren't anti-SJW for the most part, but they were alt-light. Alt-light's probably a better way to frame it. And I said, like, explain Western civilization, like, specifically. And I asked, what about, you know, things that happened in China and East Asia? Because I have heritage from there, and I certainly have respect for a lot of the accomplishments they made, technological advancements that were well above the West. And typically what I'm told is that Western cultural ideas of, like, liberal democracy came to them due to war and things like that. I actually would argue that there are aspects of Western civilization that are very, very bad. And I think you absolutely have to recognize that, you know, war, straight up. There are aspects of Western civilization that are very, very good. Liberal democracy, presumption of innocence, the Constitution, the U.S., everything that was built along with Western development in terms of protecting liberties, liberalism, things of that nature. But you also need to recognize that the East has some pretty great things too. And I would actually argue that Eastern religion, in my opinion, is to a certain degree better than Western religion. And for only one reason, really, is that Buddhists and Hare Krishnas, for the most part, the ones I know, super chill. Very, very chill people. Really, really do live by, like, doing good and trying to understand and be philosophical. But it's marginal. I don't think there's any one religion better than anyone else. I just think, let me rephrase this. I understand the idea of preserving Western civilization. My personal opinion is that I think there's a lot about Western civilization that needs to be changed, for sure. And there are a lot of things that need to be protected. And I think understanding that nuance is really, really important, because here's the thing. When you talk about Western civilization, people on the right understand you're talking about the presumption of innocence. You're talking about liberal democracy and the things that have made this country great and made other countries great. But people on the left, even people who are not far left regressive SJW, they hear colonialism, imperialism, war, conflict, slavery. So it's important, and this is why I don't really embrace the whole West narrative stuff, because I want to recognize that there really are within all cultures something good and something bad, some more than others. The nuance is extremely important. You can find really great aspects of the Middle East and Arabic culture and really, really, really bad stuff about it. And I think we often can, the bad stuff is so obvious to us that people often don't see the things that are good culturally. Using East Asia as an example, I mean, look, there's a lot of cultural things that have developed in East Asia that we love in the US. I mean, there's whole networks of people that are they just absolutely love Eastern culture. So I understand the context of what Watson is saying. The point I'm just trying to make is that there are probably people on the left who don't. And so it's important for me to always explain, always just bring out the nuance and say straight up, in my opinion, there's a lot of really great stuff in Western civilization. There are bad things too. The bad things gotta go, straight up. And that's why I talk about how I think social justice, small s, small j, this is a really good distinction. Literal social justice, I think most people agree with, except for the identitarians on the left and the right. And then big S, big J, capital. That's identitarianism, leftism, ethno-nationalism type stuff. That's the freaky bad stuff. And I think it was James Lindsay who wrote where he made the distinction, where he said when you say social justice with capital S and J, you're talking about this weird group of people. But when you're talking about social justice with just their actual general terms, what you're really saying is that we want to make sure that people have equal access to liberal democracy, that people's rights are upheld and protected. And I'm going to end by saying this because I've gone off on such a crazy tangent. This article is basically just, I'm not even talking about it. There's one thing that really, really bothered me, and it was that a legal gun owner in the US who happened to be black was killed by a cop, and he did nothing wrong. And I saw a lot of NRA members, I saw a lot of conservatives defending him, but I didn't see enough outrage from conservatives over this. And enough is just my opinion, because it certainly was there. This guy, I believe his name was Alton Sterling, I could be wrong, but when I saw that story, I was livid. An innocent guy got pulled over. He told the cop he had a gun, he did everything right. There's a dispute whether or not he went to pull it out or he didn't. The cop claimed he did, but the point is a legal gun owner was killed while he was legally carrying. And sometimes, somebody recently criticized me because I'm not talking about some Texas Israel story, and the reality is I don't follow a lot of Israel news. And Glenn Greenwald's talking about free speech. Where are the free speech activists defending this issue? And I'm like, I don't follow your news outlet. You know what I mean? It's you can't get mad at me because I read Vox and BuzzFeed. I read Vox, BuzzFeed, and the Daily Wire. Those are sources I use specifically for partisan news. And then I do read New York Times and Wall Street Journal somewhat. I don't like the New York Times. Anyway, I'm ranting. I got another video coming up. Big story about fake news. This is huge. Stick around. It's on my channel. Go watch.